And now, it's time for that great new game show.
It's the PowerShell Podcast. It's all about PowerShell and the PowerShell community.
The PowerShell Podcast.
And now, here's your hosts, Jordan Hammond and Andrew Plaw.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the PowerShell Podcast. I'm Jordan with Ultra Superstar Andrew. I think I've officially dropped mediocre from my self-title in these intros.
Let's go!
I did it. That's my self-confidence there.
That is awesome, man. That is great. Let's add a little compliment in there too next time. Maybe an amazing.
It's baby steps. I might go as high as palatable.
Fair.
All right. So after our shame of our last intro pre-show,
oh my gosh,
the worst in history.
You know, I'm sorry, the nerves got to me. I'll take the heat on that one, Jordan. Okay.
I appreciate David Dosnev is not fleeing in the middle of that, realizing we're not professional. We're going to do better this time. We actually have things to talk about.
Actually, let's be honest. I think that we did that on purpose to make him feel like, oh wow, I can be comfortable around these buffoons. I think that we did that on purpose. And you know what, David? I guess you're welcome. We know what we're doing here. We're really excellent.
All right, so I think our first point of order is you're supposed to shame me for my failures.
Yes, shame on you, Jordan, for telling our beloved listeners that you were going to come to my user group with our friend and Microsoft MVP and PowerShell podcast guest, Doug Fink, talking about PowerShell AI. But, some stuff came up and you weren't able to make it. So I don't want to shame you. You told me to shame you, so I don't blame you. But next time, man.
I don't need now. I don't have an excuse. It was a busy week, but when it came down to it, I could have fit it in and I just drew a blank. I failed. There's no excuse for it.
I feel you, but also I know how exhausting it can be to do speaking stuff. And another social event can be, for me, very exhausting, especially at the end of the day. So, shame on you, but also it's all good. Next time, though, for real, we got some cool other events and not just Gainesville PowerShell user groups that we're going to be attending that are PowerShell related. I know that we haven't plugged as much of the stuff as we've done in the past, but I think in the future we'll do a better job at letting people know what we're up to, what we have coming down the pipeline, PowerShell related.
All right. I think the last thing we have is you have a PSA for everyone writing their code right now.
I have a PSA for everyone writing their code right now. That's an intro that is not written in the notes, but now I know what you're talking about, Jordan. Yeah. So I was writing some code, my friends, and to me, it was very understandable what I was doing. Not advanced, pretty simple stuff. I was trying to do proof of concept type thing, and it wasn't working. And I was like, what's going on here? And for a while, I was kind of beating my head against it. Ended up kind of giving up for the day and taking a nice little siesta. I was sleeping for the night. And I woke up in the morning and knew exactly what to do. It was a very simple issue. And I fixed it and moved on with my life. And PSA, take a break, take a breather. I personally sometimes get so caught up in the momentum of the day and jumping between problems that I'll over-focus on something and forget the bigger picture.
It's hard to see when you lose your efficiency.
Oh, it totally is. But yeah, all right, choose your times to code.
That's enough of this. Let's bring in the latest superstar. No, I'm actually skipping this on purpose. Let's bring in superstar Rob Sewell, who is a big part of DBA Tools. He is known as, I don't want to mess up, SQL with a beard, or SQL DBA with a beard.
SQL DBA with a beard.
With the beard, yes.
It's a big joke because, I'm completely clean shaven. and who's ever met a SQL DBA with a beard? You never get any of this.
Your new territory, your first one.
So before we move on into some awesome stuff on SQL and PowerShell in the community, I just want to know, we're talking about your name. Where did it come from? When did you originally pick it? And when did you decide hey, this is something I'm really going to make my brand? Or was it kind of a natural slope?
Well, I was always Fade to Black. Fade to Black is my favorite Metallica song. And so that was my handle all over the place. But it's not really kind of professional and what have you. So at the point when I started speaking and started writing, and it was I really need to be a thing. And I just sat there and I just decided SQL DBA with a beard because, I do actually have quite a large beard. And it just makes me laugh because everybody talks about a database administrator being the one with the beard that they're like mushrooms. You put them in the dark and you feed them Oh no, you said I could swear. You put them in the Let's do that again. So, like a database administrator, you always see them with a beard, and they're like mushrooms. You put them in the dark and you feed them, and then that's what they are. So it was kind of just a funny little joke to myself, and then I became SQL DBA with a beard. But then the funniest thing was I changed my Twitter handle, and all of a sudden I became SQL DBA with the bear. Because you're only allowed to have 15 characters. So then I became SQL DBA with a beard everywhere except on Twitter, where I'm SQL DBA with beard.
With beard.
I did not notice that.
I like dropping the A. Actually, I had noticed it. I just didn't want to bring it up in case it was like a sort like you're stuck with an accident. You're stuck with the title.
No, not at all. It's not like our cats. Our cats have a Twitter account called Seek and Destroy, except it's S3 Eek and Destroy, because my wife decided that she should put their birth date in. So immediately Twitter went, hang on a minute, this 6-month-old is not allowed to have a Twitter account.
Oh wow, that's funny. But these are some good hacker names, like Fade to Black. I feel like you could have had a second career as a hacker.
Oh, maybe I did.
Oh, okay. We'll leave it there. We're not trying to expose anybody. All right. So Jordan mentioned this earlier. We like DBA Tools in a Month of Lunches. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but we've had a lot of the people who've worked on that book on this podcast. And Jordan, I believe this completes kind of like Zelda, like the little trifecta thingy. This completes the circle for us.
If DBA Tools with Month of Lunches was like Pokemon, we have caught them all.
So now the challenge is, I have to surpass or at least equal 2 of the other authors. I mean, nobody's going to beat Chrissy. I know this. So
we talked about food. That's always a win for me.
Chrissy has amazing food. I have had some of the most fabulous food at Chrissy's house, so that does not surprise me.
Yeah, she is very well cultured and an excellent chef.
And also, I mean, one of the other authors, whilst we are recording this podcast, is actually breaking DBA checks. So,
Jess, is who we're talking about?
This is who we're talking about. Yeah. So my buddy Jess.
We're going to bring her back so she can defend herself here.
Yes. But wow, did you know that we were like the PowerShell podcast? But man, PowerShell and SQL, they're good friends. We have a lot in common, a lot of overlap. It's awesome. But you're mentioning DBA checks. So she's breaking some stuff. Are there changes being made? Like what's going on with that?
Oh, wow. So first of all, let's just make sure for the people who don't know what we're talking about, because, my ego is not so big that I think that everybody knows what DBA Tools and DBA Checks are. So DBA Tools is a set of PowerShell commandlets in a module that will enable you to work with Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, and I'm not saying that the official SQL Server module from Microsoft is rubbish. I'm just saying that DBA Tools does it better. And the reason they do it better is because there are more people involved in it. So there are 297 million contributors who have written 5.5 million billion trillion lines of code. I can't remember the numbers because they just keep going up. Whereas the Microsoft SQL Server module is but 0.2 of a person's job, because they've got all of the other stuff to do with SQL Server as well. So it's no criticism, it's just that's what it is. So that's DBA Tools. DBA Checks is my personal baby, because what I do when I was a database administrator was I wanted to make sure that everything was just so. So I would have morning routine where I would check that all of the overnight jobs had run to make sure that all the backups and the maintenance and the ETL loads and all of these things had completed. And probably the earliest PowerShell script that I wrote of was one that went around the estate, checked all of these jobs, wrote an Excel file. This is before Doug Finn can import Excel, by the way, which makes it so much easier. Color-coded the Excel file, green is good, red is bad, and placed it into a share and emailed the rest of the team and said, this is where it is. So I literally took a job that took 2 hours and turned it into mainly 30 seconds of scrolling through an Excel sheet looking for the red. So then Pester comes along, right? So Pester is now validation for your PowerShell. It's unit testing for your PowerShell, and it allows you to run checks. So I like to say that anything that you can get with PowerShell, you can test with Pester. Well, great. I'm really good at getting stuff with PowerShell. So now I can test it with Pester. Green is good, red is bad. Oh, hang on a minute. I've been doing this for a decade. I know what I'm doing. So we build DBA Checks to enable us to do that exact thing. And it's totally configurable, width ways and depth ways. You can set different values for, how long is it that we must have had a full backup since? If we've got a really big database, maybe we only do a full backup every month. Yeah, we'll do diff backups every week, and we'll do log backups every 5 minutes. But if we've got a different sort of database, maybe we'll only do full backups, and we'll only do them every night because they only take 5 minutes. Yeah, so we might have different sets of rules we need to do. So we had to make it really configurable, and it literally took me 2 years of discussing this with Chrissy. Well, we could do this. No, we can't do that. No, we could do this. No, we can't do that. Because you're trying to work out how to get all of these things to work together. And then, of course, Fred the magician came along, PS framework, and enabled us to have this configuration module available. And that then meant that it became simpler to do. So then we wrote all of these things. A lot of the PowerShell that I already had, turned it into Pester checks, put it all together, turned it into DBA checks. Everything was beautiful, and Jakob changed Pester and released version 5. And lo and behold, all of our code refused to work. Because what we did was we took the number of SQL instances first, and then we just did a for each loop, and we went to random. And of course, in Pester v3 and v4, that worked absolutely fine. But in Pester v5, you have this different way of thinking, the different way of creating your checks and tests, and being able to do it. So we are currently in the process of rewriting DBA checks to use Pester v5, and it is in fact Jess Pomfret and Claudio Silva, main people that are doing it, kind of names that we know from DBA Tools, because we know what we're doing. But whilst we're doing this, we're up in the game. So now we're bringing in all the CI, CD, DevOps goodness, automated unit testing. We're doing it in dev containers. We're making use of the sampler module to do all of our creation and our building of all of our stuff. And we're then using Jakob's profiler module to then do performance testing on our code, because what happened when we wrote DBA checks was that people came back and they went, hey, it's really slow. And I went, not that slow. But yeah, I ran it against this instance with 500 databases on it. It was really slow. We went, yeah. Unfortunately, that's SMO. That's SQL Management Objects. We can't change that. SMO's now being open sourced, and some of those things have got a lot better. And then somebody else came along and said, yeah, it takes ages to run. I'm like, really? What are you running? Well, I'm running it on my 10,000 SQL instance estate. I'm like, yeah, it will. It's going to take a long time to do that. So then we started looking, we decided, right, Pester v5 is supposed to be so much quicker. Let's try and improve what we're doing. And we went and started looking at the code, and we found that we were doing things like, if we needed to go and pick up some configuration items, like this special SQL Server configuration, SP configure values, that we were going, hey, I need to go and check what the cost threshold for parallelism is. Come back again. Oh, hey, I need to go and check whether order close is turned on, and come back again. Oh, hey, I need to go and check if order shrink is turned on, and come back again. And it's like, well, you know what? Might be a better idea is to gather all of what we're going to get from that instance, go and get it all, and then come back and do a check. So we're starting to do all of these things and using the profiler module to do all of that, which then means that there's been a new Pester release, because we found that there was some stuff that Pester was doing where it was it was going through and checking every command that you had loaded and checking for the ghost mocks, I think he called them, and removing them from your session. And this is something that Pester does before it starts to run. Great, except that if you have loads of commands, then suddenly this starts taking longer and longer. And there's a different way of doing it. So instead of using get command, Jakob changed it to do something else. We've got this. And that's led to a new Pester release. So it's been really interesting, because you just end up learning so much as you're trying to work out what's going on in the weeds. But then you take all of this knowledge that you bring. People are like, why do you do this open source stuff? You take all of that knowledge and then you pick it up and then you go and do it at work. And then actually, if I'm going to start running this thing for 500 resource groups in Azure, instead of going and checking every time these things that I need, perhaps I'll work out the things that I need to get and go and get them in one hit and come and bring them back. And you take all of this knowledge and you move it forward, and everybody goes, oh, wow, look at that. You're like, yeah.
That's awesome. So if I'm understanding right, DBA Checks is saving people tons of time, right? It's a very useful way to ensure and ensure that your SQL instances are configured a particular way and up to date and pass whatever tests kind of thing. But if people didn't have DBA Checks, how else would they go about this? What other, I guess they'd have to obviously write the wrapper kind of thing themselves, but it sounds like quite a lot of work. Is there any easier alternative? My point is to highlight how helpful this is. I feel like in the landscape of tools, it must be pretty impactful.
First of all, it's free and it's tested on many different estates and different languages and all of this sort of stuff. If you're going to do it in a different way, then you're going to have some sort of tooling that needs to go and gather those information. And most of the time, people who are using that tooling are using it to gather performance metrics, because they want to see that they're interested in, why does my report take so long to run? How can I improve this query? Why is my app, when I press this button, why does it take so long to run? Oh, yeah, it's because this database query is taking a long time. And normally it's because this application's written some rubbish query and it's not processing it very well. But, it's always the database's fault. But, we need to pick up on that. So you have to spend a lot of money on this performance monitoring tool and then alter it to kind of make use of it for the reasons that you want, because DBA Checks is a state validation. Is my thing set up correctly? So Tracy Boggiano has written a great set of checks for CIS, which is computer. It's a particular set of rules that auditors like to put in for is your SQL Server set up correctly? And what we've got is we've put those into DBA Checks with the configuration preset. So you just run the set dbc CIS checks command, and it sets all the config, and then you run it, and then you can just go, yep, my estate passes these checks. The previous way of doing that, because auditors love screenshots, is you would have to go to every single instance and take a screenshot of this value and put it into a... Oh, no, I kid you not. This is exactly what they do, right? So that's the difference. But honestly, I think the best way that I explain what the difference is when I was working for a call center, I was working for a call center company, and one of our clients was a government institution. And one of the SAN admins wandered over to me and said, is everything okay? And I could run invoke dbc check, my list of production instances, which was just in a variable that I just picked in my session every time, check instant connection, go. And within 30 seconds, I'd run around the estate and I could say, these ones are not working. What have you done? And then he cycled away and told me from across the room that he not only dropped, but deleted the data drive from one of my instances, my biggest, most important instance. But it meant that I knew immediately. I knew exactly what it was what it was affected. And I knew, kind of luckily, but I knew before the client manager came over to start shouting and waving their arms in the air, we could get that information. So DBA Checks is able to do that at the command line. It's amazing. My other favorite story about DBA Checks, because I'm going to get this one in before as well, is sat working at a client much later on when I was a consultant. Sat working in a very high pressure business, and this junior DBA, her job was to come in the morning at 6:30 and run through all of these checks. And there were stupid things like, if Jordan's meal job hasn't run, then as long as it's not a Monday that's the first one in the month, then it's okay. You can let it go until tomorrow. Otherwise, you've got to run it again. Yeah, look, there are all of these sort of things that she had written down on this Excel sheet, and she had to go through and tick everything off. And the reason she had to do with that was so that she could get it all fixed, so that when everybody came into work, everything was working. And I used to sit next to her and listen to all of this happening. I used to be like, can I fix this for you, please? And that's how I got into putting everything into a database. Because before then we were quite static in our checks because that was the view. It was that picture that we wanted. Whereas now we created it so that she could run these checks, and again save so much time because everything was done. She just got the results, and then she could take action on them. Everything was ranked, but also you could see over time what would happen. So she could go back to her boss and say, well, look, this is what's happening every time, or these are the things that I fixed that are now stopping happening every time. And it really began to make a difference. So I think those are the two things that I love most about DBA Checks.
I can't imagine doing the job without that. I'm not that I am a DBA, but like thinking about having to be responsible for so much and not being able to query it doesn't sound feasible. But being able to administer and check in on all your systems and be able to feel confident, right? Like if you are responsible for something, how many people are responsible for a group of some kind of thing and aren't able to actually know, right? It's nice to have that visibility and confidence, especially when your company is like built upon perhaps the application whose data you're storing. Right, this is big stuff, and I think it's really cool to see a free module like this that makes it so not only those huge businesses with the successful, but even the smaller companies that maybe have internal applications where it's like an unempowered SQL DBA fighting uphill. It's like, wow, you can have some free time and get ahead of the work that's going to keep coming, but you're going to be able to have a better life, really.
And it means that all of those people who look after some SQL, as well as all of the other stuff that they do, if they know PowerShell, it's like everything, isn't it? If you know PowerShell, then you can at least just get on and do it, put it to good use. So you could go into somewhere and you'll be like, oh, you've got this SQL Server. Can you have a look at it? You'll be like, well, no, but tell me what you need. I can go and find DBA Tools and DBA Checks, and maybe I can check some stuff and see what's going on.
So what I liked about the initial the buildup of the changes DBA Tools went through is this is a free application. When Pester went through that big change, it would have been completely understandable. What's the minimum change we could do to make it continue running? And instead you went in and used the opportunity of what can we make better from this? You removed any sort of tech debt before it even got started on something that as a free application. It highlights why it's such a big deal. It's the care put into it.
Thank you. I think that's the beauty of DBA Tools is particularly the community contributions over the years and years and years and years that have meant that there's people that care about it because they're doing it in their own time. So they put all of that passion and that energy and feeling into it. So you end up building a great thing if you are collaborating in that way. You know, you'll build a great thing if you concentrate on it yourself and put all of your passion into it. But if you do that and you share it with everybody and have everybody else bringing all their knowledge in, you're going to build something so much better.
It's really cool to see the community-oriented nature of DBA Tools and all the people who are involved with it. And in general, I think that when you operate that way, you have more of an impact. So it like feels better to improve it, right? Because you know that it's affecting all these people in such a positive way and helping companies and so on and so forth. Like it's just such a positive cycle. I love seeing that type of thing. So congrats on your involvement in that and all the successes for DBA Tools and DBA Checks and the whole DBA Tools and PowerShell community.
Absolutely.
Although you did mention Jess is breaking it, so I guess we'll see when this goes live if it's still a thing.
Break it to fix it, right?
So we're back in this thing of, I said we're not just doing the DBA checks against the SQL database anymore. What we're doing is we're using Sampler to build our whole environment inside a dev container. The dev container's got 3 SQL instances in it. It got a load of testing functions that we've got available to check for performance, to make sure that when we switch from V4 to V5, we're getting the same results with the same things, because all of this is important. And what we've also done is we've put some branch protection rules in, which means that we're actually protecting stuff and doing it properly. Now, we're pretty much just working on main. We chuck everything into main, and the main goes off and goes, right, yep, I'll build a GitHub release, I'll release it to the PowerShell gallery. This is just a pre-release, that's all fine, it's all done on tags, it's brilliant. But our container and our dev container also lives in the main branch of this repository. So when we needed to update it, our GitHub action doesn't have permissions to push to main because it's protected, which is correct. So now we're having to split it out, and we're actually trying to split this container build out, because PowerShell's released, there's a new version of PowerShell. We were on 7.2, I think, in the containers, and now we're 7.3.3. Yeah, 0.3. So we needed to do that, and in doing that, the first thing that happened was that Jess managed to release the new container, but not update the dev container JSON. But then trying to update the dev container JSON via PR then created a new container, which bumped up the version of that, which then wasn't relevant. It's like, now we're stuck in this thing.
Challenges of a big, I guess, software development, right? Just complex systems. Stuff that we're learning as we go along. But equally, it's so much better because it means that I could give it to you. And if you can go to the GitHub repository, you could run it in code spaces in the browser if you want to. And you're going to be able to run slower, of course, in the browser, but you're going to be able to run exactly the same tests against exactly the same environment, and you can bring all of your knowledge for so Matthias, yes, and IIS Resetme came in and did some nerdy, deep dive, cool stuff that I didn't really understand. That's what
he starts talking. It's amazing, but I don't understand what he's doing. But he could come up and do that without needing to know anything about what we required for the database side of it or the SQL side of it, but make sure that all of our tests and everything could run, because we're all got exactly the same environment. So it's improving all of that stuff as well, which actually, once you start building things, I think it's really important. I was chatting with Adam Bacon at PS Day UK 2 months ago, whenever it was, and talking about how when you're actually building and developing things, actually, if you're bringing these skills and this knowledge into the things that you build for the community, you're building better product, but you're also actually improving yourself back in your work and your real life as well. So it's all good stuff.
Awesome. And just to put a bow on DBA Checks, I know we mentioned Pester and some other kind of cool changes happening to it, but if I'm just a DBA that hasn't gotten started with DBA Checks and I want to get started, do I need to know Pester, or can I just maybe install the module, get it set up, and run the invoke DBA check?
As with all things with PowerShell, if you know how to use get-command and you know how to use get-help, then you can go and do what it is that you need to do. Everything should be available to you from there. If you want to, or if you have your own custom Pester checks already for your environment and you want to add those in, there's ways of doing that as well. So a couple of configuration challenges and making sure you have your Pester set up in a certain way to fulfill, our rules, if you like, and then you go along. So the challenge in making it as simple as possible and yet also as configurable and as advanced as you want it to be is hopefully is pretty much there.
Awesome. I love things where, I mentioned it earlier, but that person who has way too much on their plate, their work culture is against them, they can get started and over time improve it, right? Because it's at least for me, a lot of times whenever I've felt overwhelmed at work, it's hard to start new things. It's hard to say like, oh, let me put this on my plate and research it and this and yeah.
Yep,
so awesome work. Now, Jordan and we're attending a PowerShell Summit, and I think at the time of posting this, that'll be a week from today. But and in the future, we're hoping to join you over the pond there. But I believe you have an awesome conference you're heavily involved with coming up. You want to talk about PowerShell Conference Europe?
Yeah, PSConf EU for want of ease of use. This year it is in Prague. It's June the 19th to the 22nd, and it will be a lot of fun. I'm not saying that it's better than the PowerShell Summit. I'm saying that other people say that it's better than the PowerShell Summit.
Out of our guests that have attended both summits, I think the only definitive we got was from Fred, who said the beer was better at PSConf EU.
Europe, yes, of course.
I think that I don't think many people choose between the two. I think it's like if it's accessible to you, you'll attend it because they're pretty far from each other.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we spent a lot of time in a single place. So we were in Hanover in Germany because Tobias is based there, and it made it easier for him. And we had the Hanover Congress Center, which is a fantastic building. Was it the best venue in the world? It had its ups and its downs. And we could go to the zoo for the evening event, which was always very positive. One thing that we took to PSConf EU is the speakers, the Microsoft product group, Jeffrey Snover, the attendee who only learned what PowerShell was last week, all sit the same. They all come and join, and you can sit next to each other. They interact with each other. It's a very different experience than from some conferences where you have that feeling of us and them, where the us are the elite speakers and who have you. The them are the people attending. We very much wanted not to have that, and we encourage and absolutely do our best to ensure that we have this complete interaction amongst all the community, because it's so important. And nothing better than just being able to. I remember when I was first SQL DBA, and I sat with Lerte Juna, who was a Brazilian DBA who was heavily into PowerShell, and I just said, I don't understand this. This doesn't work for me. And he just sat down with me for 40 minutes, and we went through and we worked out, and it was like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. That's a bug. And then he raised the bug because he was the MVP. He raised the bug in Microsoft, and blah, 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 blah. It all moved on. But just being able to have that ability to have that interaction just brings people forward so much. So we really want to try to do that. So we were in Hanover, and then Tobias stepped away from running PSConf EU. So last year we went to Vienna, and we We ran in the hotel there. It was extraordinarily hot. My word. It was. Jess and I would go out for a walk every morning, and like you could go out for a walk early, so just after breakfast before the conference. That was okay. If you went out at lunchtime, it was like, oh, Rikey Moses, it's so hot here. And with this head, it's not built for being outside in the sunshine, so it was a bit much. So we enjoyed Wien. Wien was good, but then we decided to move to Prague. Nothing to do with Jakob being over in that country, but we like to have local people available to help us, and we decided to move around because it's the PowerShell Conference Europe. It's not the PowerShell Conference Germany, so we wanted to improve that. So that's where we've got days of events. We've got many of the people that you would expect to be talking there. We've got the product group from Microsoft coming over. We've got Bruce Pyatt will be there as well, which is super good to get Bruce back over. And it'll be as much fun as it was last year.
And we've heard great things. So awesome.
Yeah.
And are tickets still available if people want to get a ticket?
Absolutely. PSConf EU. Go buy a ticket and come and enjoy Prague with us. It'll be fantastic.
Awesome. We'll put a link in the show notes.
I do like that the two biggest ones for PowerShell both take people that are new to it and make them feel welcome. It's constantly building new lifelong advocates for PowerShell.
I think
cool.
I think that it's such a cool thing, and I think that with any community that's really advanced, they see the benefit of building people up. It makes everything better in so many ways. It's just the proper approach. It's good on a feel-good emotional level, but also on a practical perspective. It's just a better way of doing things, in my opinion, and from kind of what I've observed.
I totally agree. The thing that we don't do as well in the PowerShell world as the data world does, particularly. And I've just finished organizing SQLBits in Europe, which is a 2,500 person conference over a week. So it's a significantly different size from a PSConf EU or a PowerShell Summit, but the diversity and inclusivity of the attendees and the speakers is much greater in that world than it is in the PowerShell world, unfortunately. So I think anybody that's listening, do your bit to make that better, because more diverse, more inclusivity, more encouragement for all those things builds better communities, builds better open source things, builds better.
Yep, it's right in line with those same values of making things better, right? More diverse your perspective is in any kind of group that's solving problems or doing anything, the better you're off. So it's in everyone's best interest to spend some time making that a little bit better in whatever way you can.
And I would say there's a lady called Remerit who's done a talk about the effects of diverse teams and how it makes for better products, or actually the opposite way around. The things that teams have done which have been so bad that they haven't realized until they've gone to market. The soap dispenser that will only work on white skin. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my word. It is incredible, but it's because of diversity. It's the question I ask about AI all the time. How are we stopping that from getting in and hitting our, affecting the systems, the applications that we're building?
Yep.
Got to have diverse teams asking those questions.
Definitely, some good stuff there, man. Now, let me check our thing here. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the call for data speakers. What's going on? You calling for some speakers? You got some stuff coming up? What's up?
Yeah, so it's a really neat thing that I like, and I'm going to say it here because I want to bring something that we do that's really cool in the data world and say, hey, go build something cool. So what the call for data speakers does is, when an event happens, they submit, hey, we're happening on June the 19th. We're called PowerShell Conference Europe. We're accepting people from all of this, blah, blah, blah. Here is our link for our call for papers. And it will then automatically update the website, and then it will go and build some MailChimp action and go and just send out to anybody who's subscribed, wants to know about new events coming up that they can put speakers for. And then we've also got pre-con training day, full day training. We quite often have with data events, we'll have sort of multiple smaller sessions, and then before that we'll have a full day training session by people. So we've added in, and it runs off a GitHub issue. So it's super simple. You fill in a GitHub issue that says, this is my name, this is the way that you can get in touch with me, this is what I'm happy to talk about, these are the areas in the world that I can do it. And once you fill in the issue, the action runs, it updates the website. So then if the event goes, oh, you know what, actually, I want to go and find some more training day people, because I'm only getting the same old names, they can go and find something like that. And it leads back into that conversation we just had about diversity. Because one of the things we know about old white men is they're super confident. Ain't no problem with them saying, yeah, come and get me, I'll supply for this, I can do this, I'm in control of my own finances, I can make sure that all of this happens. You will know that they exist. People who are not in that world, who are from all of the other diversities, whether it's gender, whether it's sexuality, whether it's race, they are more likely to be to be less confident in selling their skills, to have more challenges, to be more affected by imposter syndrome. The thing about if you look at a job skills matrix, a man looks at it and goes, yeah, I could probably do 60% of that, I'll apply. A woman looks at it and says, well, I can't do 100% of that, I won't apply. By getting over that and just saying to people, hey, if you just put your name here, then the events will come and find you because you're talking about this thing that's amazing. It just helps to make that a little bit better. So that's the thing that, yeah, just a little bit, just a tiny bit, just make a difference. And that's what call for data speakers is about. It's super simple to run. It's Daniel Hutschmacher runs the website part of it. I did the GitHub Actions side of the thing. I'm imploring somebody, go make that thing. Make it for something outside of the data speakers world as well. Go make
awesome. Yeah, you wrote a blog about the GitHub Actions as well, and we'll include a link to the blog and the call for data speakers.
I just like the idea of that in general, just because like every time any summit comes around and say, hey, we're calling for speakers, looking for speakers, to be able to just go and hit something that was like, hey, this event's happening, and let that handle the call for speakers for you. It probably saves a lot of oversight for those that are putting it all together too.
I think it just helps. I think this point in time where we're moving from COVID to maybe not COVID, from virtual events to not, to in-person events. A lot of the old, and especially with the strange bird social media thing that's happening, a lot of the old promotional methods that people had either don't work, or the same audience isn't there, or they don't know how to reach the audience. So, we know who we can go and ask, but how do we get some of these new people? And it's by it's that butterfly thing. It's like if you tell somebody about it, that's one thing. But if you actually enable them to tell other people, to tell other people, to tell other people, to tell other people, suddenly your reach is getting much wider. So hopefully it makes a difference. But I just think it's a good idea, and I think more people should do it. And if there was more of me, then there would be more of these things. But there's only one of me.
Well, I think you've done a good job at modeling some good behavior, and hey, people can definitely repeat what you've done in different circles and get some awesome results. But I really like your approach. I think that when I hear the way you approach things, to me, it's like directionally correct is kind of what comes to mind, where it's beneficial in so many different ways. It's just the right approach, for so many reasons. And I love that kind of thing. And I love to see that in the world. So keep doing what you're doing. Very cool stuff.
Thank you.
Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Jordan, I think you might have some. Oh, wait, sorry. I wanted to talk about Data Saturdays too. I know that these Call for Speakers are for speaking events, but also you have some Data Saturdays going on.
Yeah. So in the old world, in the data platform community, there was, and there still are, SQL Saturdays, and they were run by a charity, a sort of non-for-profit that went bust, and there's all sorts of drama about it. And so suddenly there was a gap, and there was no way of having these events. And my buddy Gianluca in Italy was about to run SQL Saturday Pordenone, and then they couldn't do that. So we needed to do something. So we were like, right, Data Saturdays, let's make this happen. Data Saturdays is just a framework to enable event organizers to run events. It's a Jekyll static website running on GitHub pages, so it costs nothing but a domain name. It does some funky stuff. It creates a new page. There's a fair bit of stuff going on in the background. Again, running off of GitHub. A GitHub issue, which you then creates a GitHub action and moves forward. And it's enabled, I don't know, 30 or 40 events already to have a presence, to embed with Sessionize or their pre-con, their training days, and do everything that they need to do to be able to run an event. Doesn't run the event for them. They still have to put all the effort in, but at least gives a framework. It gives a web presence. It links into the Sessionize. It makes one place for it to be.
Dude, Mr. Empower, man. You are empowering so many people in so many awesome ways. I love to see that, man. That's super cool. I'm looking at datasaturdays.com, and looks like there's some upcoming events in May and June, all kinds of stuff.
So, yep, Oslo in September. So yep. Jess Pomfret and I will be in Oslo in September doing a training day. So that might actually not actually be. We'll leave it in, but that might not actually be on the website yet. I don't think it's officially been announced.
Oh, I see it. I see it. September 2nd.
Oh yeah, Oslo's announced. I just don't know if the fact that Jez and I are doing a training day is announced.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, giving us the juice.
So it's not too often where it's obvious why someone's more successful than me just pops up like this one. But my approach to something I love going away is, oh, that sucks. And your approach seems to be, well, I'm just going to recreate it and make it better. And that's an admirable quality.
I think I get most joy from helping other people and from seeing the things that they create. I'm a grand mentee. So I actually went to Data Grill in Germany, and my mentee from the first time that I was there, my first mentee as a speaker, he had his mentee at the event. So we were able to take this photo of a mentee and a mentor, and then their mentor, and it was just like, this is so cool, because you're just building this thing, making it better and better, and that is far more appealing to me than anything else that we do.
And in listening to kind of, from what I've seen so far, this is our first time speaking, but it sounds like you have a vision of how you see the world and communities and doing things, and you have a lot of experience acting on your vision and a lot of successes implementing projects like Data Saturdays and your experience with DBA Checks and so on and so forth, where you identify something, your vision is to make things better and improve it, and you do it. You have a lot of experience knowing that, like, as I go through a project, on the other end, it'll look like this, and just boom, it's kind of, there's that framework in your brain to keep doing it. and you've had so much positive momentum. It's really such a cool thing to see, because I'm just curious what it'll feel like as I continue to go through my career and learn these lessons that you've learned. It's such a awesome thing that it's more than just technical successes that we're having here. We're like growing as people, we're helping others. It's my favorite part about this whole community podcast thing is getting to highlight that kind of stuff. So awesome. My heart's warm.
you can't beat it. You can learn how to build something cool, and you can write the code to do it, and you can make the code faster, and that's great. And you build the thing, and then the next thing comes along. But when you watch somebody that that was struggling to know how to put a slide deck together, who can now put out the most amazing slide decks and give presentations, and has become an MVP in their careers, taking part, and then they're coming to you saying, hey, and I've got this person, and now they're doing it, and you can feel that impact that you're having on the world. I think it's got to be a better way of doing it, I think.
Yep, I think that you nailed it with feeling that impact. Feeling the impact of your hard work makes it a lot easier to keep doing it. And by putting yourself out there and actually being in the community, you get to feel that impact. You get the benefits of that. It's a really awesome, positive reinforcement cycle.
And the rest of it comes. Do you know what I mean? I don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't worry about all the other things, because the career comes, because people will come and ask you to do stuff and pay you money to do it, and all of the other things of MVP and being selected as a speaker, and anything else that you want, that's going to come. Right? It just do the right thing, never stop learning, listen to other people, and have a make an impact, make a good impact on the world.
Yep. Again, it comes to mind, directionally correct. If you're living in that correct way, it'll all align. Like maybe there's a couple bounces here, but you're headed this direction. You're going up. You're going in the right way. You're doing things the right way. You're not leaving big gaps in the way you're living life that can come and bite you in the butt later.
Yeah, for sure. And like nobody says it's easy, right? So here's the other part of it. Do I still get nervous every time I speak? Absolutely. Like you watch me 5 minutes before I'm about to start speaking, I am so nervous. Don't talk to me, because there's no point. You won't get anything out of me. I'll be walking backwards and forwards and often here and doing this. And then I start speaking, bing, I'm on my way. When Chrissy and I used to do presentations together, which is something I really, really miss doing, is she gets really nervous from minute 0 to about minute 2.5. Whereas I get really nervous from like minute -7 to minute -1. The point where you're like, right, oh, hello, how is everybody? Are we ready to go? Yeah, we're nearly ready to go. At that point, I'm gone. Which is just about the point that she gets nervous. So it was really funny that we have this, like, I'm really nervous, she's really calm. And then I'm totally calm, she's really nervous. And then we got into it, and we both go forward. But it doesn't matter. Everybody that you see, they've spoken to an empty room. Their demos have gone wrong. Their computer has crashed. They've put the wrong PowerPoint up. They're always nervous. They've left their drink behind. All of these things have happened to every single speaker that you think is the most amazing, wonderful, person there. It has happened. So do it.
All right. Well, you have accomplished all these amazing things, but there is something you have yet to accomplish.
Ooh.
And that
I haven't played cricket for England. I know.
England.
I'm too old. I'm too old, man. Jordan, come on.
So this one is the common parameters, which is 3 questions we ask all of our guests that each one is more difficult than the last. It is probably the most difficult challenge you're ever going to go through in your career.
So is this like, what if verbose confirm?
Exactly, but there's no what if. You just gotta answer these nearly impossible questions on the fly.
I'll see what I can do. I'm
ready?
not very good at talking, Jordan. I don't know if you noticed.
All right. The first common parameter. What is one time something went wrong while on the job? How did you handle it, and what did you learn?
Oh,
Yeah.
I have made so many mistakes. Oh, which one do we want? I mean, you know, I had the time when I pressed so F5 for PowerShell folk is debug. In Management Studio, F5 is run the script. I have pressed F5 and literally left my finger hanging on the thing, going, oh no, this is bad. Because I've just run the UAT script against production for a government organization and brought the whole thing to a stop. That was a good one. What did I learn there? I learned that using CNAMEs to make everything identically the same between environments was a really bad idea, and we needed to make sure there was something to change that. That was one good one. Another good mistake I made was learning how powerful PowerShell is. So you can change things with PowerShell really easily. You know, get a member, find the property, work out how to set it, do the .alter, done. Yeah, bingo. So what I did was I changed the alert timing differential for SQL servers to say every time these things happen, just alert me once every hour. Okay, we don't need to have an alert running every time this thing happens. Alert us once every hour, and then we'll be fine. Except that what I did was I actually changed it to once every millisecond, which meant that on an estate of SQL instances, the alert would fire and then 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 fire, and every time it fires, it's sending an email to the DBA team. And every time it fires, it keeps on doing that. And actually, what you can do is you can break Exchange.
That's really easy. As someone who was an Exchange admin, breaking Exchange isn't impressive.
The best bit about it was the phone call I got at 3 o'clock in the morning from an Exchange admin who was absolutely furious, like beyond the pale, purple language, so cross. And I was like, oh. And I got my laptop up. I stayed in bed. I got my laptop up. I VPN'd into my desk. The script was still up there. Oh yeah, changed it from 1 millisecond to 1 hour. Ran the script, done. I literally, it took me 30 seconds to fix it. It cost me 3 trays of donuts. Right? That's what I did. I had to pay the cake tax, and it was absolutely fair that I paid the cake tax because I had caused all of that problem. But I fixed it in 30 seconds. So yeah, there's some of the times that I've really screwed up. There are plenty of others. What have I learned? I have learned that before you run anything, you should check it, and then you should check it again, and then before you do it, you should absolutely check it to make sure it's the right thing that you're doing. I made the joke about what if parameters. For PowerShell, what if is an absolute lifesaver. Little nugget of info. In the old days of the SQL PS PowerShell module, if you did remove SQL database with the what if parameter, what it did is it printed out on the screen, I will remove the Jordan's most favorite database after it had removed Jordan's most favorite database.
Oh no.
That's
It no longer
favorite.
does that. So there you go. That's one. Did I do all right with the first one?
You did pass the first common parameter. I like to say it's 3 questions, but then I like shovel 3 questions into the first question. So I'm not very consistent with my form here. All right, second common parameter. With everything you know now, what is one tip you'd like to give your younger self when you're first starting out?
You are not alone.
That's a good one.
So when I first became for starters, this is my 3rd career. Yeah, I started off life working in what we call secure units for people with severely challenging behaviour and autism, sort of people who have been legally locked up for their own safety or for other people's safety, not because they've broken the law, just because they need that much care. So that was my first career. When I became a SQL DBA, I was working for a government organization. There were 4 DBAs. We looked after 100 SQL instances and near dozen Oracle instances, boxes, whatever. And within 6 months of me starting, there was me. Because my boss left to go around the world. Andrew Prusky, who is now known as DBA from the cold, is a container guy, absolutely fantastic. He went off and worked somewhere else, and the other Oracle DBA left. So there was just me, and I felt very, very alone. And actually, I wasn't alone. There was a user group very close to me. There was tons of resources out online. I could interact with people, and by getting in touch with those people at the point when I realized that, much later on, my life became easier much quicker, because this is my story into PowerShell, into DBA Tools, into speaking to you now, into all of this world, is because I was so overwhelmed as a person who didn't know anything and who had to take the responsibility of 4 people and look after some really important stuff that I needed to automate. I had to automate. I had to script. I had to be able to do that, because otherwise I was just never going to survive. The point at which I then started learning about the community and the user groups and the people and the resources that was out there for free was the point that I then started to really develop and gain confidence. And because I could, like you said, I could take all of that knowledge from other people and make use of it and gradually just make my life easier. So you're never alone. There's always people out there. Just reach out and find out how to get in touch with them.
Great advice.
I think that is a first for that one as well. You're treading new ground here, breaking new ground. This last one, this is by far the most difficult because nobody can pick just 3. What are your 3 favorite modules in PowerShell?
You can shill for yourself. It's okay.
Absolutely.
My 3 favorite modules in PowerShell completely are, without doubt, PS Framework. Because without PS Framework, there are so many things that I wouldn't be able to do. And it makes logging, it makes modularizing, all of those things are fantastic. DBA Tools, because without DBA Tools, I wouldn't be here sat in front of you. And Pester, because without Pester, I would still be writing COM objects and writing Excel sheets and turning things green and black with thousands and thousands of lines of code that would very annoyingly go wrong.
I like it. That is 3 columns. I'm surprised PS Framework doesn't pop up more often. I guess because by its very nature, it's the framework for a lot of other great work, but you don't always.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment, and I think people don't realize what you can do with it.
Yeah.
So I think the people that really want to learn how to do the stuff that it does are people like Justin Grote, who goes off and builds his own thing because his brain is amazingly big, and Fred's brain is amazingly big. And what he actually should have done is realized that, oh, hang on a minute, we're both doing a lot of things at the same here. And going, I'm not picking on Justin in any way, shape, or form here. It's just that was the first point that I thought about it, because many of these other the frameworky type modules, people, Pester, people use Sampler, people use Evoke Build, all of these things people are making use of. Once you realize what PS Framework can do, it's so much. I love it. It makes life so much easier.
Fred, who has done a lot of modules, said that one was his magnum opus. Like he was
very, very
excited to talk about that one, as he should be. It's a lot went into that.
I mean, it is like the config for it, the logging for it. I love it. I wrote modules for clients, and they were like, "Oh, how do I get to see what I've done?" I'm like, "Great, just look in the config where you log back this." There you are, open it up. They're like, "Oh, you've got all that. No, what did you do?" It's like literally all I did is I commented the code in effect. Because I just write PSF message with whatever's happening and a verbose or a significant or whatever it might be, and look, lo and behold, it appears in a log file without. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to know what's happening on your machine. It just happens, and I do the same. to Azure SQL database. And so I log stuff that runs in GitHub Actions or in Azure pipelines, just running PowerShell scripts, just set the logging up, pipe it all into a database. You can do it into log analytics as well. And you're like, what happened? Oh, yeah, great. And then you pick up, you can then add in Justin's, I can't remember the name of it now, the one that works with application insights as well. And like suddenly people are like, you're a genius. I'm like, no, I'm not. He's a genius, and he's a genius, and she's a genius, and those people over there, they're geniuses. And all I've done is just go, yeah, I'll grab that.
I used to always say when I was stealing work, and it got me in trouble at work. It's like, you're not stealing it, you're using what other people have done to make it easier. But my first impulse was always to view what I was doing as stealing, which is the wrong way, because that's very counterintuitive to the community.
Well, and if you're a proper user, think of it like this. If you're using an open source tool, you're helping them as long as you file issues when you run into them, communicate, that kind of thing. You're doing your part. Not everyone has to be a contributor to the degree of Fred, right?
Correct. And the story I made said about Pester right at the very beginning was literally me going into the discussions on the Pester GitHub repository and going, got this weird thing that's happening. This is what I'm doing. And then Jakob comes along and goes, well, what about this? Try this. And like his brain's amazing. And he's like within an hour of backwards and forwards, he'd worked out, oh, it lists this. We'll change the thing. Frodo's looked at the PR. Well, no, we can't do it like this. We need to do this other thing. And, bingo, and it's done. So being a contributor doesn't mean that you have to write code. I think I don't think I'm even in the top 10 of DBA Tools contributors anymore by lines of code or by commits or by whatever way you judge it. I don't think I'm even there anymore. But that's not to say that anybody who comes along who's the 279th of the list is not just as important and bringing their value in. And also not that all the people that file issues, that write wikis, that join in discussions, that write blog posts, that share stuff aren't actually having an impact and making the community better, making that project better, making the whatever it is better. So it's not all about the Freds of this world. And I love Fred to bits.
that was a fun conversation. I think he was one of our first ever guests, which was very nice of him because we were just starting out at the time. I think his name really, really helped us out.
Yeah, Fred's great. You're mentioning mentors earlier. Fred was one of my first mentors. He was really approachable and helped me out in a big way. So love Fred. We should get him back on sometime. He's great.
You should do that. You should do that. Fred, he's done so much more. So PSConf EU is always hilarious because Fred will say, what would you like me to submit? And I'm like, these things, please. Like same with Matthias. Matthias is the same. Like,
yeah.
Like, he's like, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, do that. Do that,
Yes.
that thing. That will be amazing. Yeah? Fred will give me a list. I got these 15 things. Which one? And I jokingly say to him sometimes, it's like, one of these days, you give us 15 sessions. I'm going to take all of them, and we'll just have you. We'll just like the entire
Fred
conference. There'll be one room with Fred in it. I don't think the other organisers would let me get away with that, which is totally fair, because we need to spread it, diversity and all the rest of the stuff. But
I'd sit in that room for sure.
Yeah, it's so hard. People like Matthias, like James Brundridge, like Fred, like Bruce. These people with just amazing amounts of knowledge. Like, it doesn't matter. Just come and talk to us, because we will all learn from that.
All right, Rob, I'm sure you've noticed while I've been talking that Andrew spends his day just cloaked in excellence. Just everything about him just exudes greatness. But there's one thing about him, even with all of his just magnificence, there's one thing that stands out as above the rest, and that's his ability to shill a podcast. So we're going to sit here and we're going to sit back and watch a true genius just convince people to maybe leave a 5-star review.
Let's watch a legend.
It's shill time. Take a shill pill. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. This conversation was excellent. I had a blast. I was smiling my cheeks off. If you're smiling out there, give us a thumbs up. If you're listening to us, give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. If you're on YouTube, leave a little comment. If you leave a review on Apple Podcasts, we will read it during our little pre-show, little ramble. If you'd like to follow us, we are on the Bird site at PowerShell Pod. Or you can email us, powershell@pdq.com, if you want to talk to us. Thanks to everyone who's reached out recently. We love hearing from you, and occasionally people come to us with questions, and we can connect you with the right answer. I think someone recently reached out to Jordan asking about user group stuff, and Jordan was able to connect them with someone in their area who can help out with the user group. So
I haven't.
Thank you to everybody.
I've been attempting to connect.
Well, I'm going to help you out with that. We'll get that full closure. Thanks, Pierre, for reaching out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks so much to Rob for joining us. I really appreciate you spending some time with us here today and sharing your insights with our audience. Love the projects. Love your energy. Love your everything. So thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast with your hosts, Jordan Hammond and Andrew Plaw.
He's a troublemaker. He's a rabble-rouser.
The PowerShell Podcast is a production of PDQ.com, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.